Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Startup Global Industry Advisory Circle Retail and Customer Packaged Goods. My name is Amanda Logan, and I am a Programs Officer at Startup Canada. I would like to begin to take a moment and acknowledge the land on which I am located today, which is the unceded and traditional territories of the Algonquin Anishinaabe, also known as Ottawa. As we are a national organization, I would also like to acknowledge, with respect, the diverse histories and cultures of all Indigenous peoples. I encourage you to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional territory you are residing on today. Startup Canada is a national nonprofit that is the gateway to Canada's entrepreneurial ecosystem. We're here to connect entrepreneurs with the support, community, and tools they need to build a successful business in Canada. Startup Global is one of Startup Canada's flagship programs that supports entrepreneurs looking to export and expand their businesses internationally. From webinars, roundtables, and our annual pitch competition, this free program will help you build an international market entry strategy and plan. These industry roundtables will provide attendees with a deeper understanding of trends and best practices in their sector and will leave with actionable takeaways and resources that they can implement into their business. I would like to hand it over now to Felipe, Marketing Manager for Small Business Segment at UPS, to say a few words on behalf of UPS and their partnership with Startup Canada.
Thank you, Amanda. Good afternoon. Before starting with my opening remarks, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the land on which I am joining this webinar from today. I'm located on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Wendat peoples. This land is home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. We recognize and are grateful for the enduring presence of Indigenous peoples on this land and the knowledge they hold. As we come together for this webinar, let us reflect on the importance of truth and reconciliation and commit ourselves to ongoing learning and respectful collaboration. Good afternoon. My name is Felipe Seriquier, and I'm the Marketing Manager at Small Business for UPS Canada. Thank you for having me today at the Retail and CPG Business webinar. I'm glad to be here to kick off our session. I'm proud to say that we've had a long-standing partnership with the Startup Canada, and over the years have provided significant support to many small businesses owners through different practices and programs, such as exporting bootcamps, on-site event consultations, mentorship programs, and the Women Exporters Program. In today's webinar, you'll be learning from and networking with industry experts and fellow entrepreneurs in the retail and consumer packaged goods space. In today's world, the retail and CPG industry is more than just about the products. It's also about customer experience. Every purchase incorporates many customers' touchpoints, including essentials logistics handling. As customer expectations are continuously evolving, collaboration and partnership is becoming more vital to meet those expectations. At UPS, we are long-time champions of small businesses. We continuously develop and enhance our services so that the small businesses can compete with the industry giants. For example, we recently launched a suite of Saturday services, including Saturday ground delivery in metropolitan areas across Canada with no additional fees. With UPS, your business can now offer a Saturday delivery just like larger companies. While weekend deliveries may come with a surcharge or a special contract with other carriers, UPS is the only integrated national carrier in Canada to provide a committed Saturday ground delivery at no additional cost. UPS also now offers Saturday ground pickup for commercial addresses, allowing you to fulfill ship orders placed late Friday or even early Saturday. Saturday ground delivery and pickup can be a differentiator for business, especially small businesses, attracting customers who want their delivery sooner. We're also very passionate about solving small businesses' unique challenges through innovation. We launched 3 services to make exporting easier for small businesses: paperless invoice clear customs digitally, UPS Export Assure AE-powered assistant to create accurate export documentation, and UPS Global Checkout offer visibility to landed costs at checkout. All these services help simplify the exporting process by reducing errors and offering transparency. These efficiencies also help small businesses compete in a more level playing field with larger companies. There is always a UPS professional available to help you find the best shipping solution to support your business. No matter the size of your business, we continue to support entrepreneurs reach their goals locally and globally. You may also begin with a discount offer on domestic and international shipping, as well as the support of a team of UPS ambassadors ready to get you started. Whether it's offering a reliable shipping solution, industry expertise, or many available tools, UPS Canada continues to support Canadian entrepreneurs. Please visit Startup Canada/UPS to get your discount today. Thank you for joining today's session. We look forward to collaborating with you soon. Back to you, Amanda. Thank you.
Thank you, Felipe. I would also like to take a moment to thank our co-presenting partners, UPS and Export Development Canada, EDC, as well as our program partner, TD Bank, our Ecosystem Partner Forum for International Trade Training, and our community partners, GS1, Communitech, and WeBC. Today's session is for retail and consumer packaged goods businesses, and we're very excited to be diving into this discussion. Our schedule of today will be a round of speed introductions from each of you attendees. So you can either do this on camera or in the chat. Oh yeah, you'll see the schedule right here. And then next we'll hear 3 expert talks from 3 of our guest speakers, followed by 50 minutes of a Q&A with those 3 speakers. And then the last part of today's session will be networking breakout rooms where everyone will get a chance to connect with 2 to 3 fellow attendees. Speakers will also be in these rooms with you. We have about 35 minutes carved out for these, and we'll do 3 rounds at about 10 to 12 minutes each. Okay, now we're going to get started with attendee introductions. If your camera is on, I'm going to assume you're comfortable introducing yourself, and I'll call on you to start. But also feel free to introduce yourself in the chat if you prefer, and put in your LinkedIn link if you would like. Okay, so I'm just going to go in order of who's on my screen first. So Navi, I'd love if you could introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Navi Permanent, and I'm the founder and CEO of Celebrate Your Curves Fashion from Halifax, Nova Scotia. Hi, Amanda, and hi, Isabel. Really nice to see you. I'm looking forward to learn a lot more in this session. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next on my screen I see is Christina from Wicked Rose.
Hi, everybody. My name is Christina. I'm the founder of Wicked Rose. I live in Vancouver. We create activewear specifically for women in martial arts.
Thank you, Christina.
Thank you.
Sarah Delaney.
Hi, my name's Sarah. I'm the founder and principal consultant with BFD Retail Consulting. I work with independent retailers specifically to boost strategy, implement process, and improve profitability.
Perfect. Thank you. Laura.
Thanks, Amanda. Laura Rigudo from FIT, the Forum for International Trade Training. You mentioned FIT in your intro. We are an ecosystem partner for Startup Canada, more specifically Startup Global, because we provide that specific international trade training that helps companies get their products across borders. So the A to Z of international trade, from how to find markets with potential all the way through to what documents you require, to how to finance that transaction, and how to market and sell your product. So that's what we do. I'm double booked today, so I can't stay, unfortunately. I love these sessions, but feel free to reach out to me anytime or FIT and see if we can help you grow global.
Perfect. Thank you, Laura. Next on my screen, I see is Shaylin from Kind Design Studio.
Hi, everybody. My name is Shaylin. I'm located in Edmonton, Alberta, and I'm a graphic designer and owner of Kind Design Studio. I work with Canadian businesses to help build people-first brands that resonate with their target audience, both emotionally and functionally. And yeah, I just love attending these Startup Canada roundtables and learning more about amazing businesses in different sectors across Canada and meeting other Canadian women entrepreneurs.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Punita.
Hi, my name is Nita Bhargav. I'm located in New Brunswick, Fredericton, and I'm a founder of Shrimries Export Limited Company. My mission is to help people control their digestive health with products inspired by ancient practices tailored for today's lifestyle.
Fantastic. Thank you. And then Simrit.
Hi, my name is Simrit. I'm the founder of Drastic Drinks, a supplemented beverage company to help you feel better recouping from jet lag, hangover, workouts. Haven't launched yet, but the launch is planned for January.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay, that's everyone I see with their camera on. So anyone with your camera off, please, I welcome you to introduce yourself in the chat. Oh, I see Cheryl just turned on her camera. Cheryl, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is Cheryl Sutherland, and I'm the founder of Please Notes Goods. Please Notes is a personal growth line of stationery and additional gift items created to help you become your favorite version of you. And as of next week, it will be 10 years that I have been in business, and I'm located here in Toronto, Ontario.
Fantastic. Thank you. And then I also have Manud. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly.
Mahmoud.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. So, hello everyone. I'm Mahmoud Gaber. I'm the founder of Mac Clothing. We are based in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. We create women's wear from recycled fabrics. We have a patent in progress now with our recycled fabrics. We as well got accepted to be a supplier for Walmart. We're trying to expand provincially and nationally with our sustainable products. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And then I have Zul.
Hi, yeah, I'm in the kitchen. That's why I have my camera off. So I'll introduce myself quickly and then turn it back off. So I'm Zuli Ankama. I'm the chef and owner of Zuli Eats, which is a Ghanaian food business located in Windsor in Ontario. And I'm gearing up to put some of my snacks into retail, and that's why I'm here to learn and absorb everything that I need to know to launch this product.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay, perfect. Anyone who did introduce themselves, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat, add your LinkedIn so people can connect with you. Okay, so now, sorry, I just lost my spot. Okay, perfect. Now we are going to move on to our expert talks. After our expert talks, we do encourage you to ask questions following them. You can do this either by typing your question into the chat, or if you'd like to use the raise hand function, we can call on you to turn your microphone on and ask your question out loud. So without further ado, I'm honored to introduce our speakers today. First, we have Kristin Spong, Manager of Employee Sales at Riipen. Next, we have Debby Macharia, founder and CEO of Beauty Profs. And lastly, joining us is Nita Tandon, founder of Dalcini Stainless. Thank you all for being here today. So we'll start off with our expert talks, and I will invite Debby to kick things off and tell us her story.
Nice meeting everybody. Hi everyone. I was just listening to I think her name is Simrit when she said she does drastic drinks, and I think that's what we need for every entrepreneur in the room. So I think I'll be calling with these drastic drinks. I need to know if there's some that are specifically for the entrepreneur in the room. But anyways, my name is Debby, founder, CEO, Beauty Profs Limited. And Beauty Profs definitely is a global company that houses, among others, international beauty brands. My journey, of course, started back in my home country, Kenya, and I moved to Canada. So if you're an immigrant out there trying to break into Canada, I definitely understand where you're coming from. And then I decided to change my career and venture into the beauty industry. Went to hair school, of course, got my certification and got the National Red Seal certification. And this gave me the freedom to practice across the country. So when I was in that space, I saw the gap and that the beauty professionals, me being one of them, needed high-performing products that they could trust. And definitely that led me to create a Beauty Profs brand. And under that brand, we have one of our most famous products. Most of you guys have heard about it, called Fusion. The unique thing about this brand is that it was built by professionals for professionals. So today our brands are sold worldwide. And I am proud to say that we've become a trusted name in the industry. Thank you so much, Amanda and Isabel, for always having me in this panel. And I really look forward to talk and share my experience.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, Debbie. I will now pass it over to Nita to share her story.
And like Debbie, just listening to everyone's stories on the panel, it's wonderful to meet you all. And I can definitely tell you, I started exactly where you started. And just even hearing your stories about starting a company, I'm happy that you actually have a group to grow from. So the journey can feel lonely. My journey started 2010, back when I ended up having a child. And I decided I didn't want BPA, but BPA was only banned in baby bottles, not in food storage containers. And so I decided to create them myself. And so I'm originally from India. Dalcini was born out of a mother's need to have safe food storage without all the chemicals. So I took something that I knew from India, but I wanted it to be good for North America. So we created Dalcini Stainless, and Dalcini is now an international brand of food storage containers, but also tabletop. We are moving into other sectors as well. And we just recently started exporting to Germany to add to our list of countries that we sell to. Dalcini, started as a small idea, a small thought. We had a lot of naysayers, but I would say to everyone on the panel, if you came up with the idea, know that there's a market for it, and it's really just coming up with a strategy to move it forward.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Nita. Okay, and now lastly, I will pass it over to Kristin to speak about Riipen.
Thank you, Amanda. So my journey into the CPG and retail space is a bit different, as I'm not directly from the sector, but I've been supporting it for over a decade. So my background is a blend of academia and industry. I started out in research and development in the higher education space. And that experience really opened my eyes to the incredible talent and innovation that's coming from these young researchers and how valuable it can actually be when it's applied to real-world business challenges outside of academia. So for about the past 10 years, I've been focused on helping businesses tap into that talent by connecting them with students, researchers, and funding, very valuable funding resources to help solve complex problems and really just to drive business growth. So in my current role at Riipen, I lead the employer partnerships team, and we work very closely with companies to understand your needs and help you engage with our programs in the best way possible to basically help you innovate, scale, and build talent pipelines. So for startups, one of the biggest challenges, which might not be unique to CPG sector, but definitely we see the challenge there, is figuring out when to hire, when to outsource, and when to leverage wage subsidies, what types of subsidies are available. Hiring too early can strain cash flow, but if you wait too long, it could maybe slow growth. And so that is something I've consistently seen across the businesses that I support, and it's a big part of the work, of the reason why I'm doing the work that I am today, to help founders access the right talent and funding resources at the right time through meaningful collaborations. And I'm very excited to be here today. I'm a little bit under the weather, so I really wish I had a drastic drink with me.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kristin. Okay, now I am going to pass it over to Isabel Nolan, our Director of Programs with Startup Canada, for our panel discussion. For those of you who feel comfortable, we invite you to turn on your cameras for this portion. We do have some prompt questions to start. However, we do encourage participants to ask questions. You can do this either by raising your hand and we'll call on you, or you can pop your question into the chat function. So Isabel, I will pass it over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Amanda. And hello, everyone. I'm Isabel Nolan, Director of Programs. Wonderful to see some familiar faces here today, but also some new faces as well. So thank you so much. If this is your first session or your second or third, it's always wonderful to see people making the time to come and join us for these sessions. So we've got some wonderful speakers lined up for you today, as you've just heard from them, and looking forward to digging into their experience and their journey in bringing their business to another market, as well as the incredible things that Riipen can do for your business. As Amanda said, please feel free to raise your hand and ask a question. We do have some wonderful questions that we've got planned out to kind of get the ball rolling, maybe warm people up a little bit. So we'll go ahead and ask kind of like a general talking about the journey, I suppose, for each of our speakers. And for Nita and Debbie and Kristin, I'm going to throw this out and maybe you can unmute as you want to answer. So we heard a little bit about your journey into this space, but can you tell us a little bit more about what that journey was like for you in the beginning stages, and maybe some specific challenges that you had when starting out, and then evolving that into a global business. Nita, maybe I'll pass to you first for this.
I love that you're even asking the question, because there's this assumption that when you have an idea and you want to start a company, that everything's really easy and smooth and you hit success pretty quickly. And I was one of those people. I thought I was just going to bring a product and everyone was going to buy it, and it was just going to be really quick, and you're going to hear the cha-ching, cha-ching every time they're buying it. That wasn't my journey. My journey was I came up with an idea and I had a lot of naysayers. And so there was traditional ways that business was done before. And they kept saying, but you need your product to fail for people to buy it again. Or they would say, oh, you would need to, work on the Canadian market before you can start exporting. I did everything differently. I did really on my own terms, and I just kept forging ahead. The difference is I worked for large pharmaceutical companies before in the business area. And so I really relied on my own skills and kind of thought that maybe it's arrogance, I don't know what it is, but I just thought, no, I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. And so for all the naysayers, but it got frustrating because there were so many people that thought they knew what I should do next for my business. And it wasn't until my husband kind of looked at me and he said, you know exactly what you need to do, and stop listening to everyone else. And so I did that. And, my first, where I really picked up in sales was exporting to California. And it made sense because the market was already primed. When I started my company, people in Canada really were not talking about sustainability. They said eco, do you mean it's eco friendly? And it was more than that. It was sustainability. And when I had a product that I knew was going to last, they wanted me to dumb it down. They wanted it to fail because that's how technology, if you have it fail, you should only have it work for 2 years and then people will buy another one. Very much the Apple model. And so I think it's for every founder, and I would say particularly for women, because I think you will still get a lot of business people that will tell you that they know better. And I think for women that tend to be in spaces that are serving other women, your market very, very well and trust your instincts. And so this is my journey, is that I had to do a lot of failures to finally realize I do know what I'm doing. And I would say the first 3 years were more of a challenge. And once I sort of got my footing, I think the next 3 years ended up a little bit stronger. And then the last, I would say 2 years have just really picked up. And I think it's the more I know who I am and where I'm going.
Thanks, Nina. And I feel like you hear that. Well, I definitely hear sometimes that like sustainability and longevity can't run alongside each other, which obviously your product defies that piece. But then also having that confidence to ignore the naysayers. I think that takes a lot, because if you're first starting out, and perhaps if you're working within a space that you're not traditionally educated in, that could easily influence you, and you could listen to all of them, and that would affect you so greatly. And you probably wouldn't be where you are today. So I think it's wonderful that you had that confidence in yourself, and your husband was there as well to be like, don't listen to them.
It does
Debbie?
take a little bit of a skill, though, to tune it all out, because it is so loud and there are so many groups that say that they know better. And it has to be a specific, like a moment that you go, actually, I know this stuff. And, you know, the quicker you get to that point, the quicker your business moves in the direction you want it to move.
Because you're the one that, everyone's business is their baby, and you should be the person that's like the first cheerleader of it. So you have to protect that that love for it, I guess, and stand up for it. I love that. Debbie, how about yourself in terms of those early stage pieces of getting into this this industry, and then those like early challenges that you had to overcome?
That's a very good one. Sometimes when I listen to Nita talk, I feel like she's in my head and living in my head and answering. But that tells you that, yeah, we all go through the same things. But for me, I must say, when I started, I thought product development was going to be my biggest challenge, Isabel. But then I came to realize it was actually regulations. I didn't, there were things about compliance, about labeling, about ingredient sourcing that I had not really paid attention to. And some of them were just because compliance is different in every different country. So from a professional point of view, I would say regulation was a big challenge. But for the purposes of this meeting, I want to talk about the other bigger challenge that I found that had nothing to do with my expertise. And that was me as an immigrant entrepreneur, a woman entrepreneur, a Black woman entrepreneur for that matter, a Black woman with an accent for that matter. Like we can keep adding and adding and adding. So for me, the hardest thing was creating credibility for myself. I could not access credit at all, not even a credit card. It didn't matter what I said. They asked me things I had never heard about, like credit history. I had no idea what credit history was. So I found that as an immigrant entrepreneur, you have to work twice as hard, not because anybody hates you, no, but because there are rules and regulations that Canada works with in order for you to actually get some of these things. So I found building your credibility and believing in your story, like Nita was saying, will be the hardest, or was the hardest part for me, because you have to first put yourself on the map. You have to believe in yourself so that other people can believe in you, because it doesn't matter what you're selling. You have to first get that credibility so that people can even actually look at what you're saying. So for me, I would say invest as early as possible in your credibility, do what needs to be done in your particular industry, so that you can actually create a name for yourself and for your brand, so that actually people and companies and banks can look at you. So I would say for me, funding and credibility and putting myself on the map as an immigrant entrepreneur was some of the biggest challenges I found personally.
And I'm so glad you talked about like regulations and credibility, of course, but then also accessing various different types of financing, which I would like to dig into it shortly, because I'm sure there's a lot of other people in the room who are currently trying to navigate that. So thank you so much for that, being candid with those struggles. Kristin, I am curious, what advice do you have, when a company is assessing their internal capacity to support international sales, or just, expanding beyond their province or Canada as a whole? Are there any key skills and roles that entrepreneurs should ensure that they have, or that they should plan to acquire before they're going into an exporting journey?
Yeah, I can comment on that. I really liked Nita's comment though too, is that not listening to external advice all the time, right? Sometimes you just know best when it's your company. But I do usually tell founders that if you're looking into international expansion, it should really be a multiplier and not a reset for you. So like usually you would want to have a strong foundation at home. You might have 18 to 24 months of consistent growth, and a supply chain that can be a bit flexible without completely breaking. I usually also would say, again, this is pulling into what we've heard already, but really doing that market research, international markets. Is there pull from those international markets? Nita said California, they were into sustainable products, not so much here in Canada. So that was a pull for her to direct her there. So is there inbound inquiries? Is there web traffic from abroad? Maybe even retailers reaching out to you. So that's a sign that there's demand there, and it's not just, your ambition to expand. So kind of that, there should be some demand-driven reasons for expanding versus just founder driven. And then I think it was Debbie who commented on this, but like make sure you're doing your market research. So that could look like a lot of different things, but consumer behavior and demand. What does the competitive landscape look like? What is the total addressable market and growth potential in that new market? And then lastly, are you ready? Can your team or can your business handle that 20 to 30% increase in volume? Are you set up for labeling and compliance, like Debbie had mentioned, and distribution into those new markets? And so sometimes I actually suggest, and a lot of companies that I've worked with have done this, they set up little validation tests first. So whether that is cross-border e-commerce or local pop-ups or influence campaigns, just to prove that there's some early traction before scaling up. But basically, as long as it's aligning with your broader strategy, so the right market should really amplify your brand and drive you revenue.
I love that, and I think it's so important to remember, like any type of growth, but I think especially when you're going into a new market, like it needs to be a strategic, data-backed decision, rather than just, oh, we're doing great in Canada, let's start selling into the US, all 50 states. You really need to be looking at, all of those pieces that you've mentioned, and ensuring that you have the capacity, and there's appetite within the market, and you choose that market very, very wisely as well. But Kristin, like to kind of what you've said, has maybe interested to ask Nita and Debbie, was there any specific decisions you made from the get-go that allowed you to be able to expand globally a little bit easier? And I'm more so thinking, for any entrepreneurs here today, maybe they're starting out, but they're not necessarily thinking about going into a new market. They want to build their brand recognition and their customer base in Canada first, and then maybe expand. But is there anything that an entrepreneur can do to set them up to be successful when and if they decide to export? Nita, maybe I'll go to you first.
If you have a website, I would say start there. Have a website. I use a Shopify platform that's very easy to populate, and test out different markets. Because the thing is, this assumption is that to export, you have to do it in volume. No, you have to sell one thing across the border and you're an exporter. And so I think sometimes just having someone purchase from you from another country, and sometimes you just have to try it and then say, how did this go? For me, so I look at the partners that I have. UPS has been excellent as a teacher to me. I've learned a lot. And so when I initially started to export to the US, electronic documents, they showed me how to do it. I did my first one. There was no issues. And I said, wow, that was actually pretty simple. Let me try a couple more. And then when I had it on my website, I saw the traction from US sales were happening a lot more. Well, now I'm capturing data and I'm seeing, well, California's picking up, but so is New York. Okay, so those two states. Okay, now I'm seeing, and so as you're accumulating data, you can really start to say, okay, what retailers in those two particular states? And so sometimes I just say, just try on your website, just try selling somewhere, then collect the data, and then start putting it together a larger plan to export in larger volume. But like what Debbie was saying, make sure that you know your market. I mean, for example, at one point, you know, I was looking at selling to France. Now, my products initially in Canada, people were looking at lunch containers, kids' lunch containers. Well, it didn't make sense in France because kids get a lunch at school. And so schools provide that. They're not packing a lunch. There's no sense of me going over there. If I was going to sell my containers, I mean, even the adults, their employers are buying their lunch, right? So a lot of employers have. And so if I had to do it, I had to do it in a different market in France. And so don't assume what your product is here can go into any country and just multiply it in different countries. You really have to know, how do people live in those countries? What are the ins and outs? And also know that everything is figure outable. I don't know, like everything, you can access so much information on the internet. You can, you know, speak to people. Canada is filled with people from around the world. Talk to a person from the country you want to go to. They will be able to give you so much detail that you sometimes don't get those little nuances from reading a book or searching online. Talk to them. And in this group alone, I think, you know, there's going to be someone who knows someone in a different country, and learn from that.
Excellent advice. Thank you.
I have a question. Can I ask?
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely, Pranita. Go ahead.
Okay, Nita, when did you start engaging on the website? Because my product is under development at the moment, and I'm making digestive gummy and digestive drink. So should I be engaging on the website now, or when my product is already ready, then I should be engaging? When is the best time to engage with the customers?
So you can do two. One is that you can start populating your website now, and you can put information. Now there's different tracking. You can see what pages are they going to, which products are they more interested in, and you can say coming soon. Where are people spending more time? And start to build data. And that information is very, very quick to access. Shopify will even give you the report, so you don't have to have an IT degree in all of those details. And you can test things out too. You can look at this picture, that picture, and you can start to build. You know, when they say pictures are everything, when you've got an e-commerce business, you can start to test out different pictures and see which ones work. So I would start before you even have the product. And then once you have the product, you've built the data to make it more successful.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Thanks. Great question, Pranita. Thank you. Navi, you have your hand up.
Hi, thank you. I have a question for Nita. Thank you for sharing your story. Let's say that a company has done their research and they know that there's a lot of market in US. They have their products as well, website as well. How do you get there? Like, what's the first step to actually land that product in US?
So I have done things a little bit differently. Again, like, you know, I'm sure a lot of the schools would tell you to do all of your marketing, do this, do that. I did it the other way, which is I created a demand so they came looking for me, as opposed to me trying to push my products on them. And so how I did that was I would get onto social media. I would start an Instagram page. I would post things. I would look at companies that I was like a similar demographic, didn't have to be a similar product, but a similar demographic, and say, how are they doing it? What are some keywords that they're using? How can their customers end up coming to my Instagram? Also, when I started Instagram, the algorithm was very different than it is now. And I think it's a little tougher to do now, but find other ones. I mean, if it's TikTok, if it's, you know, even on LinkedIn, if you're starting a business, find out in other countries, who are some people that you want to start talking to, and just start reaching out, letting them know who you are, and have them start tracking you, so that whenever you do something new, you have an audience already.
Debbie, do you have anything to add to that?
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And I know you're asking about, you know, what we learned when we wanted to prepare products to go for export or internationally. Yeah, just everything Nita said, but adding to it, for me, what I learned was, apart from, of course, definitely have your website. That is one, how people can find you. But I found for me, I also made mistakes when it came to labeling. You know, for me, it was just, I'm making a shampoo. I just need to tell you it's a clarifying shampoo or this, and that was it. I mean, you should know. But then I came to learn internationally, if you need your product to sell across border, there are things you will need to look at. And some of them included, you know, what are the regulations about labeling that can be sold in different countries? And it could just even be US. Or if you're in Canada, it's the difference between being in Ontario and going to sell in Quebec. You know, it's just things like that that I found. You know, another key thing I found was including your barcode in there. Before, when I started, I didn't have barcodes. And then I went on a session and they're like, oh, barcodes are very important if you want to sell, because that's something international. It's another thing I found was use of QR codes now and language. And then there's so much information out there. You'll attend seminars every day of people telling you what you do. Most of them are going to be very confusing for you. And I got confused every minute because I attended this one, it told me this, and the next one negated what the first one told me. So I learned to be very authentic with your brand. You're the only person who knows why you created what you're selling right now. So there is a universal language that I found out there, and it's your authenticity. Who are you behind your brand? Why are you really selling what you're selling? Why should someone buy my shampoo or my conditioner or what I'm selling and not another one that you find in the mall? So believe in your story, tell your story. As an immigrant, most of you who are immigrant, we know we've been trained not to talk about ourselves. Don't tell your stories too much. Don't tell, I think, and I believed that. And then my digital team, actually, some of them who are in this conference today were like, Debbie, talk about yourself. So that I would challenge you, why are you selling what you're selling and why? That story, that particular story that you don't want to tell is universal. Someone in France, someone is London, like I know Nita just shipped in Germany, I think she was telling me. We just got an order out of Madagascar, and it was just the story about why we are selling the brands and why we created the brand. So I would say, go authentic, let people resonate with your why. And believe me, they'll come looking for your brand. They will click on that website.
Brilliant. Thanks, Debbie. And Navi, brilliant question. Thank you so much.
Thank
you. Zainab, I saw you had your hand up, but it's removed now. Do you still have a question for the speakers?
Yes, a question statement. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I don't know how it's come down. Sorry, I come late. Struggling. Debbie, the question you just said about selling yourself. When I'm an immigrant, I came from a war in Sierra Leone, West Africa. If you know how everywhere, even when we are doing a survey or we do the data collection all over. When I came here, because my parents was a diamond digger, they have a whole land. There I got educated. And I'm always saying I'm so grateful and proud to be educated in Canada, even though I have a big student loan running behind me right now. But yes, selling yourself is one, but it's good to sell yourself to the right people that can grab your attention. Like me, I learned a big bitter experience. Selling myself, talking this, they grab it because some of us, we came here like a newborn baby. We don't have no money. We live back home people, so we don't save money. In this act, I created this business, buying, but mostly I do back home in Sierra Leone, selling the products of Canada, one in education, machinery, which is cars, and new technology like computers, because in most of Africa, they link in China or America. So if you say we're selling yourself, how do you get the right people that can support your idea and work with you in terms of loaning or in terms of sponsoring your business? Sorry if I talk so much long and whatever, because that's my struggle. And whenever I expose it, I say, this is what I do to sell, buy things, export it in Africa. Some other people take that information and they go behind us in Sierra Leone, go buy the gold, diamond, they come and sell. And the people laughing at you back home say, oh, you say this, but we don't see. And you don't have the money. How do you go to get the right people that can work with you, say, okay, buy, go sell, buy, come and sell here?
Thank you, Zainab. I'll answer the best way I can. Nita and Kristin, feel free to chip in. I would say, I know, I think it was either Kristin or Nita talked about your research. You need to do your research before you enter the market. But to answer your question directly, Zainab, I would say you have to identify your niche. One thing I learned is that your product is not for everyone. If you're making a product for everyone, you're going to fail. Because you are going, today someone will come and say they want this, tomorrow someone else will want this. You have to identify who are you making your product for. And when you identify your niche, you have to target every aspect about your company has to target that niche. And when I say every aspect of your company, I'm saying your presentation, your marketing, your pricing, everything has to target that niche. Sell with a purpose. You know, what's the purpose that you're saying? If you're selling machinery, maybe your brand is made in Canada and not being made in China, as you said. You know, why is that important for you? You have to say the reason why. Why are you saying that my product is made in Canada? Why is that important? For me, for example, my product is made in Canada, or let's say even some of it made in the US. Why is it important to label on my bottle that it's made in Canada? You know, why? So someone has to know they are buying for this reason, you know? So first for me, I would say it's your niche. Your niche, remember, they buy the reason why, and it's never about the money. For me, when I learned that anybody can go even to dollar store and buy a shampoo, now I always say I do not just sell a shampoo, I sell the experience of using Fusion products. So I would say identify your niche and market directly to that niche and feed what it is that they want, because most people do not buy the product, they buy the purpose, they buy the experience, they buy the reason why.
I would agree. Actually, everything that I feel like everything that you say, Debbie, I feel like you're in my head now. And you said it, and it's exactly what I would say. I would also say that if you're looking for funding and you're looking for someone to support your business, the clearer that you get in who you're selling it to, the clearer your story is, the more apt you are to get some funding. I originally went to TD. TD was my first bank. Now, the difficulty was at this point, I didn't have a business. I had an idea, but I just went to the bank because I wanted to separate my business from my personal. So I go to the bank. I told the person what I was doing. She asked me more and more questions. I was very clear in where I was headed. And she said right off the bat, can we give you a cash injection to start your business? And everyone said, that's unheard of. Like, how did you give her a business plan? Like, what happened? I said, no, I didn't. but I answered every one of her questions. And so the clearer you are in your business, where you're going, how you're going to generate funds, who you're marketing to, all of that, it becomes easier for the bank to support you. And
that's the barrier. That's the point. That's the barrier I'm facing. I'm crying because I do whatever I can. I even go to my childcare money. I do everything, but the barrier is, as a Black, that's my struggle.
And I also went
Bank
into
don't.
Yeah.
I've done all over, let me say, since 2016. I go from non-profits to profits. I go this, I go that, I grab. That's the barrier of this. They needed to clear out so we can go out there and sell Canadian products, because it was so bound that only America, China, Europe, that's
I
it.
mean, I
But
think
we need
Canada,
to expand.
yeah, I mean, I think Canada wants to help businesses, but we have to show how we're going to help Canada. They have to know, that we're going to be profitable. This is our path to profitability. We know our market, show them the numbers, show them the plan. And they also, like, again, I'm going to use TD as an example, but I think this would be with any bank. As a Canadian, I came when I was quite young. So I've been in Canada many, many years. And I had a career. I had no, I wouldn't say racism, I didn't have any obstacles. But when I started a company, it was very different because I didn't have generational wealth, right? If they're going to look at, did you have any inheritance? Did you have, family to put in money? I didn't have that. And so my starting point was, it's all me, but there's not a history of big funds behind me. And some of the questions they asked, was, okay, you own your house with your husband, so is he going to co-sign? And I would say back to them, are you going to ask the men if they own it with the women? And are the women co-signing? And realizing that some of the questions that banks ask, they just ask out of, this is what they've always done. I think sometimes you can push back as well with some of the questions that they ask. And I did. And TD has been a partner of mine since the very beginning. Other partners have been UPS, and it's just funny that you actually have them as your sponsors. But I would also say, reach out to your sponsors and ask them ways that you can improve. And the more information to have a more solid story, it's your business plan. And the more that you know the details, they trust you as a person, because they're going to trust you before they trust your business, right? So if you can say confidently what you're doing and how you're going to generate money, you get more people that step in and help you.
I have a question.
I'm sorry, Puneet. Well, just because I have other people in the line, so I will absolutely get to you. Before we get to the folks that have their hands up, I did, Kristin, want to ask you along these lines as well of these different struggles. With organizations like Riipen, what are some supports that you can offer, or like accessing affordable talent for specific tasks such as these, or putting together business plans, or even like social media strategies?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. And so at Riipen, we have various programs that basically help companies like yourselves onboard talent to work on real business initiatives. So one program in particular, which is called Future Path, is a program that provides a 50% wage subsidy for you to bring on students for easily tap into student talent by providing a 50% wage subsidy. And they can work on any types of projects. So for instance, one that just comes to mind, I recently facilitated a project where a company in the CPG space brought a student on to use data analytics and AI to streamline their supply chain optimization, which was a really meaningful project for them because it basically built them something that was based on consumer demand in real time. And so that's just one example where a student could help support. It's twofold because you know, Riipen is a good example of it's low barrier. You just need to be registered as a company in Canada. And so you're applying, and it's actually for the Future Path program, you're putting in 50%. We're matching that 50% to pay the student. So you're not onboarding them as an employee. So it's not like you're increasing your headcount. They're working as an independent contractor. You're getting real work done. They're actually getting great experience working with an entrepreneur, which is very meaningful for them as a student. But also, it kind of goes to that building your credibility as well that Nita had talked about, because now you can say, I applied for this funding and I got it. And I've tested this business plan and I have proof. I've done this research and this is the project that was done by Riipen with Riipen funding support. And FuturePath is actually funded in part by the Canadian government. So it gives you a little bit, it's an easy way. It's not a loan, but it is a way to leverage the funds that you have in a really critical way that provides real business impact. That's just one example of a project, but other examples that we see a lot of is like marketing research, helping increase SEO, you know, improving innovation, business processes, staying innovative. Students bring a lot of new ideas. So analyzing category trends or competitive landscape analysis, new market opportunities like we talked about earlier, increasing your brand, so refining messages, social campaigns, a lot of projects that you probably could do yourself and you might want to, but you don't have the capacity to do as a startup because you're wearing many, many hats. And so those are just some ways that programs like Riipen can support.
Great. Thank you for highlighting those, because yeah, I think there's some fantastic supports that people can access in helping them with certain issues that folks are raising here. Simri, you've had your hand up for a while, and I think you mentioned in the chat, but I'll let you go ahead and ask a question. I also think you had another question previously that we didn't get to in the chat, so you're also welcome to ask that as well if you'd like.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I was just gonna actually just read off what I had in the chat. There was talks about shipping from Shopify to the US. Is there a way, do you know, to ship only to specified states so that you can kind of trial and see how it works in the US market? And then my second question, I don't know, maybe we'll start with that one actually.
Absolutely. So you can go right down to, you know, what state you want to have it. You can, I think you can even go right down to, yeah, I think it's by state. So you can do it by state. It'll say all 52. You can say, do you want, you know, including Alaska? You can say all states except for Alaska. So it gives you a lot of opportunity, and you can set what your shipping rate will be so that you can either do it by whatever it is, the actual cost, or you can say anything for the states, I'm going to do it as a flat rate of $10 per shipment, whatever it is, but you have a lot of opportunity to play around with it, and nothing is final. You can try the first couple and say, did I make money? Did I lose money? Let me adjust, and until you can land on something that's always profitable. I would say, you know, initially a lot of businesses say, oh, I'm just doing it to try it out. No, your goal should always be to look at profitability. And I think a lot of people initially say, oh, I just want to build the revenue, and they're not looking at the cost. It's costing to get that revenue. So if you're, you know, doing, I don't know, you're selling something for $100, but it's costing you $95 in marketing spend, you know, is it worth it? But if you find other ways to do it, and that $100 is $100 in profit, I mean, these obviously are not real numbers, but what I'm saying is really look at profitability, and use that as your gauge more than, you know, total sale.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question, given that I have a supplemented beverage, drastic drink, do you have any advice on gaining shelf presence for B2B sales? I'm trying to do it independently before I even consider using distributors or brokers.
I would say figure out which shelf you want to go to, and go into the stores and actually look, take pictures, figure out what your product, where you want it to sit on the shelf, who your competitors are going to be, how is it going to stand out from those products that are currently on the shelf. And then you can decide how you're going to sell that with your packaging, right? Because, you know, when you're selling it to someone on your website, you're selling to them, you're writing, you know, you're having a conversation. Now your packaging has to be your salesperson. And so think of what are the key things that you want to say about your product in comparison to the other products that are on the shelf. And how is someone going to pick yours over theirs? And then when you're working with those retailers, also know those retailers, how they work. Because some of them will say, we only bring, business only bring in SKUs if they have like a family of 5, right? Like they don't want to bring in just a single SKU. Some will say we want to have a shelf of at least 5 different varieties. Some people will say we want to have a minimum of a certain quantity. Do you have enough to supply to all of those stores? So really figure out what the retailer wants, but also just do a walkthrough yourself so that you have that information before you have that conversation with the retailer, where you think you should be. Because they may say you need to go into the a different aisle, like a health food aisle, and you're saying, no, I want to be in the drink space aisle. To have that conversation, you have to have data and you have to be have conviction so that they will end up putting you where you want to go as opposed to where they think you should go.
Thank you.
Yeah, and also to add on to that, and that's very good. You've said that you go and do your research, see who are the 3 to 5 competitors on their shelves. See how you compare with them, even in pricing and even on the look. And then another thing, remember also they're in business, they want to make profits out of what you're doing. So what's your price point on it? And be ready to offer things like sampling, because they want to see what's the response of your drink into their store. Do people like it? How do they respond to it? And see how they work. And be ready to offer that, like I can come and, have sampling on your drink. But before you do that, like Nita said, be sure to know that when they put that initial order, you can be able to supply, because most of us make that mistake of going and they say yes, and then they order 10,000 units, but you only had 100 in the store. So, be ready when you do that. Just look at their minimum orders, do your research well, be ready to sample. So of course, you're going to incur the cost. Look at their SKU, look at their barcoding. What do they prefer? What do they have? Just check the 5 where you want to compete with and where you want it placed exactly, and then just tell them how much money can you make them, because they're also in business. And how sustainable are you? Are they going to make the first 10,000 or 1,000 and then you go out of business because you cannot keep supplying them?
Yeah. And I think to add to that as well is being aware of the implication of stock that isn't sold and what happens then, and is it sold back to you, and do you have the capacity to do that? Does it have a specific shelf life as well? So there's a lot of things that come into play when you're going out, especially into those big retailers. I have spoken with entrepreneurs in similar situations as you who have gone after they've tried their retail market with like smaller stores that around the country as well before going after the big, like, Shoppers, Whole Foods, Sobeys, like all of those as well. But thank you, Nita and Debbie, and great questions.
Yeah. I was just going to add one other thing, which is also know that there's a difference between your customer and your consumer. And so if you're going into, you're saying B2B, it's actually B2B2C. And so your job is to sell the product to your customer, which is the business, and support them in selling it to their consumer. So you can add, you let them know data that you've seen on your traction on your website, that this type of customer buys it. Like, so share that. It's a partnership, you and the business, to sell to the consumer. And if there's any way that you can put a QR code and get that consumer then to come back to your website, then the next time you launch something, you've got that consumer that's now your customer. So really think of it's B2B2C, and all 3 of those have to be effective.
Okay.
And Punita, yes, you're welcome to
I
ask.
have 2 questions.
Sure.
At what point do you involve investor in your business? And my second point is, how do you build high value report of your startup business?
Great questions. Who would like to take that on?
I can take that on. So when do you start? you can start at any time asking for investors. I think the biggest thing is to make sure that you know your story. Make sure you have a business plan, make sure you know the numbers. And investors at the end of the day want to make money. And so if they can't see a path to making money, then they're not going to invest. And so it generally has to be, they want to see something within 5 years, 5 years, maybe 10 years. They also want to see big growth. They're not looking at small growth. They want to see millions and billions. And so unless you have a massive growth trajectory, generally they also will, investors want to see traction already. How do they know that this is a good business? So I would say get started first. Show them that it's picking up. Show them that there is traction for growth. You know, there are some companies that get investment before they've ever sold.
Right.
But the story is so solid that the investor goes, I get this. This is going to be a really strong market. For many others, it's prove it. And especially if you're getting an investor that doesn't know your market. It tends to be that way. And I think that's the issue that's happened, is that, you know, 2% of female businesses get funded. And if you're a person of color, it's even less. And,
Right.
and I think a lot of that is because the people that have the money tend to be white males that tend to invest in other white males because they know it and they know those businesses. It's not that they don't like you, it's that they're not familiar with your type of business. And so your challenge is to put together a business plan that they will understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
So there's
you.
not really a right timing. It's really just how solid are your numbers. Yeah.
And also, is it
Hello.
is it a time for investment, or rather, is it worth your time getting investment when you can seek out other avenues of lines of credit or grants or bank loans? You know, really utilizing those first before giving away equity, because you know, you also have to remember that you're entering into this very long-term commitment that people liken to a marriage, or even more serious. Is it worth that to your small business, giving away that piece so early on as well?
Thank you. And how about the high value report? I just wanted to know, like, how do you build when you're starting up?
The high value, like
Yeah.
like a valuation.
Yeah, high value report of your business. Yeah.
Yeah. So valuations are really it's building the story. So it's how well do you know your industry, the trends that are happening in your industry. It's, you know, looking at the competitive landscape. It really comes down to, can you put together a story that shows that sales are going to be going quickly, and it's backed by data. Everything has to be backed by data.
By data. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great questions, Panita. I'll also have to say, I'm loving all the interaction and advice that's happening in the chat as well, from between attendees as well. There's really great insights in the chat, so make sure you're also following along with that. Okay, I think Zainab had their hand first, and then we'll go to AJ afterwards. So Zainab, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anita. Please, Debbie, not like, yeah, exactly what's looking for. You know, when you are doing discussion, or you really get it when the professor come to the point that you are working on. My question is, how do you get an investor in Canada? Because the business that I started doing, it's out of my own childcare money I grab. But in the US, they want my products, like the gold, diamond. I got all around, like in Canada, in Saskatchewan, they have a diamond refinery where I can take it, they refine, they put it in the market. I communicate, I have a membership. But as I always getting denied of getting a grant or neither a loan, how do I get in Canada? But because in US, I refuse of selling my products in US, and I stop now buying products from US, because I used to buy bags from US, But since the challenge and Canada is not for sale, and I'm always, yeah, so so I stopped buying. Right now, I'm struggling. I go work, so for me to get money in my business, for me to start paying myself either. How do I get an investor that know what I'm doing? Because I have examples already. And somebody, I mean, another refinery for gold already saying, oh, you can bring up to 3 kilo, 4 kilo, we can buy. But that money, who is going to trust, and how am I get an investor in Canada? In yeah, that's who ready to sponsor
I
to
mean,
do the work.
investors are really tough to come by. It's a tough market in Canada.
Especially Canada, yes.
Especially Canada. And so I would say do whatever you can to increase your sales without an investor initially. And that's, starting small, just finding someone, because an investor will not come in unless they know you're going to be a success, especially these days. It's even, if there was investors before, there's even fewer investors now. And they want to know, how are you making money and how are you going to succeed?
Yeah.
And if you can't get it with a funder, really speak to your bank. Really find if there's a banking partner that can understand what you're doing, and without an investor, see if there's a banking partner, see if there's creative loans, see other things that are other than funders.
I agree. Like Isabel was saying, you have to first fund yourself before you can have other people fund you. But directly to answer that question, I think Nita talked about if you think you're going investor where you have to have your data very solid, you have to have your valuation completely solid, you have to have your projections airtight, because those are the numbers they are going to be looking at. But there's one thing I always want you to know, and this happens quite a lot, your story. You can have all that and still they will not invest in you, because most of the funders I find, and most of us as immigrants, that's where we fail, is that we work so hard on getting the data, the valuation, the projections and everything, but our story is not airtight. But because remember, an investor has to look at you and ask themselves, is she worth investing in? Do I want her as someone who I want to work with? Because they're not investing for 1-2 months, they're investing for years. So most of them actually end up investing in you as a person. And then something else Isabel said, remember, anytime you bring in an investor, you're giving up control of your company. So you have to also ask yourself, what kind of investor are you really bringing in? Do you still want control? Because some of us want the money, but we don't want someone to also tell us what to do. You cannot have both. So I would say, don't get it backwards. Invest in yourself. Of course, work on all those things. And as Nita said, first grow your company. Let the numbers speak for yourself. And believe me, they will be the ones approaching you, not the other way around. They'll come knocking on your door. I can tell you that story. Nita and I could not say that 2-3 years ago, but now we see, oh, you mean this is all we needed to do? Yeah.
Well, I see there, that's the Isabel come in for startup.
Hello.
How do you start?
Hello.
Oh, sorry, AJ, just give us one moment while we wrap up Zainab's question. Sorry, can you repeat that, Zainab?
Yeah, so there Isabel come into this group discussion, startup. What's the meaning of startup?
So startup, I mean, the way that we are defining startup is companies that are 5 years or less in business, have either 10 or less employees, or you're even the sole proprietor, and less than $1 million. So it's a very large sort of umbrella that we're dealing with.
Absolutely. We need to get a startup somewhere. Somebody needs to get a startup.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And these are what these discussions are for, is having the discussion of where do I start when I'm first starting out? So you're bringing up excellent questions, as are the rest of our attendees as well. And I think also as well, you'll find the networking breakout rooms great for connecting with other attendees here today and seeing who else is having this struggle, and or have you gone through it? What did you do? So you can listen to what they've done to help inform your next step, Zainab. So yeah, thank you. AJ, please go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, thank you. So my question is that I want to start the business for exporting pulse from the Canada to India. So how I can get the different licenses and how I can come to know which organization will help me for funding uh, and the documentation part of documentation, or if someone is in this group is already in the exporting business, please share the email or some details so I can contact him. Thank you.
Perfect. AJ, can you just tell us a little bit about the business that you're starting so that myself and the speakers can better assess what type of sort of the first steps that we advise you to take?
So actually, I want to start the business for the pulse, like red beans and like that from the different part of Canada, and planning to export to the India. As per my analysis, I have seen that the Canada is the highest exporting the this type of beans, and India is the most import the pulse from the Canada.
And sorry, you're saying pulse. Can you explain a little bit more? Maybe our speakers are familiar, but I'm not familiar with pulse bins.
It's like pulse, it's one type of the beans for the it's a use for the cooking and eat the proteins like that. The pulse is mostly uh, grow in the Saskatchewan area.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I'm understanding what you're saying. Thank you.
Lentils.
Yeah, sorry, Nita, if you have any suggestions on where they can start.
Yeah, so I think I go back to research again, which is people were willing to help you if you can give them more details and say, I'm looking to export, like I would go to Export Development Canada, EDC, or I could go online and do a search to say, what's the documentation that I need? So have a starting point where you've done some information, and then maybe talk to someone and say, what's the additional information that I need? Because nobody wants to do the work for you, but they're happy to help you and sort of fill in the details. So I would say, find out, from someone else that's in the food industry, what are some, what are the certifications that you require, and maybe even the person who is developing the pulse, the farmers, maybe they already know what you need. I would, start there, and also let them know how much you're going to be, looking to export. Because if you say, I've got, I don't know, a 20-foot container versus a 40-foot container, and I'd like to do this every 3 months, send this off to India, or every month. If people see the volume and they see what you're doing, they say, wow, this could be really big, then they're willing to help. But if they see it as being a very small, then they're not as apt to help. So I think it's all about developing the story, saying, my business is moving, I'd like to really do this, and almost assume that you're already doing it to get the answers. Because if it's just in the initial phases of your researching, you're going to get very little details. I don't know if that helps you anything.
Yeah, but my question is common question, which is the helpful to all the participants. So who will start the new product or new business? So I want to know that is there any organization who give the direction or guidance for what type of the documentation requires for the specific product to export to any country, like and who give the funding for that, like packing credit or something like that, letter of credit or like that line of credit, who gives the, I know that there is a 5 major banks is in Canada who funded, but if there is some new business, they don't interested to fund it. If there is a already established and or already profitable business, then they give the funding. But if there is a new to the business, so who give the support by government or any small banks who give the finance to new to the business, right?
So this is a big challenge because banks will only give you money when they think you're going to make money. And so if you're brand new and you don't have any money yet, you can't get a large line of credit. It's going to be based on your personal credit. So if you develop a credit history, you are, you pay your bills on time and all your credit card, you have a certain, net worth, they're going to look at that. So I would say build yourself and your credit history with a bank, any bank, and develop it that way so that you can get a line of credit, use that line of credit to do your first few orders and build a little bit of traction, and then you can go larger. That'd be my advice.
And then
Yeah.
I will.
I just want to, I don't know if I just want to give a little, I don't know. Yeah, I will send my email as long as, because like this is, I'm an advocate, so that's my field. I have masters in international development. So I will give you my email, then you will check on when I will be available. So I will give you all the step of the way. Company office, this, how your business going to be legally registered in Canada, how you will have the license step by step according to, I think I understand what he is trying to bring into. Then from there now, like you will have what am I saying? You will have a benefit of getting a credit, a loan, because the Indian nation here, they help each other. So I will give you my email, then you reach out to me. As long as you say Canada product to send it to international, that's my field. Okay, I'm so proud. Do it. I'll send you the email. Sorry to interrupt.
No worries at all, Dinah. And that's what we're here for. I love to see other attendees and willing to support fellow attendees. So thank you for offering that support. And AJ, just to let you know, Anuraga also put into the chat that they can help with regulatory support. And they've also put their email in there. So you've got 2 people to follow up with after today's session. Okay, so we are at time for our panel discussion. Thank you so much to all of our attendees for the incredible questions. I always think it's a great sign, or a sign of a great session, when we hardly get to the questions that we had organized for the speakers. I really like to see the attendees driving the conversation and the direction it goes in. So thank you so much. If there's a question that you had that we didn't get to, the networking breakout rooms are a great way for you to ask those questions and continue the conversation. So I'm going to pass it back over to Amanda. Thank you all so much for engaging with the panel discussion. And Amanda, back to you.
Okay, all right. So now we are going to head into the breakout rooms. While we set these up, I'll go through what is to be expected in these. These breakout rooms are to provide you with international networking, or sorry, intentional, not international, but about international stuff, networking with each other. It's kind of like speed dating, as presumably you're all working within the retail and consumer packaged goods space. So use this time to get to know one another. Perhaps there's someone in the room that can help you with a roadblock you're currently facing, or they can provide you an introduction to someone. We do ask that you ensure that everyone gets a chance to speak and that you are